I'm really happy to be welcoming someone who, unfortunately, I didn't know when we were making the film, but who subsequently has had a huge impact on me for reasons I'll go into now, and for reasons which he will explain. Maher Harb has a very small, beautiful winery in the north of Lebanon, in Batroun, in a little village called Nahla. And I met Maher when I was writing the book that Norbert and I have just finished. And I'd heard rumblings. That here was a young guy who was determined and passionate to make wine. And I thought, okay, there's a lot of guys like that out there at the moment. Wine is fashionable in Lebanon. Everyone wants to make wine for various reasons. Some people want to make wine because it's quite sophisticated. Some people want to make wine because they got land they don't know what to do with it. What I didn't know when I met Maher was that his story was going to be very unique. And not only that, was that his wines were going to be equally unique and thoughtful and representative of what I'm really happy to say is a new movement in Lebanese winemaking. And reasons why Maher is on this webinar today is that not only is he a new generation of winemaker making interesting and intriguing wines, but the backstory that led him to establish his winery and to make his wine is very much related to conflict. He'll tell you more, but his father died in the Lebanese Civil War, the 1975 to 90 Civil War. His father died in the fighting, and his death at such an early age, when Maher was so young, instilled something in Maher that he said, I've got to do something that will make my father proud. And so the SEPT Winery is, if you want, the legacy of war. So in the sense that it does fit in within the philosophy of the film, and that his determination to set it up, again, fits in with the philosophy of the film. So I won't say too much more because I'll
Can't hear you, Michael, anymore. It's muted.
How's that?
Better.
Okay. And so I just want to start off by asking you how life has changed since the October 17 revolution and the political instability that has affected Lebanon, and since the global pandemic, which kicked in March of this year. How has that affected you?
First of all, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. Really glad to share this moment with you. So basically, as Michael said, SET is a new winery. I'm in this business since now 4 years. So mainly it's brand new experience for me, an entrepreneur, as a winemaker. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, this financial crisis, the revolution before the financial crisis, or with it, it came all together. It's a situation in Lebanon that has been luring around us for a while, and we cannot say we were surprised when it happened, but of course it changed a lot of our routine activities and daily habits. So in the beginning, it was, for me personally, it was a little bit a shock, let's say, on the business scale, especially that it came in November at the end of after the harvest and the winemaking, which is always for me a less I have to switch from a winemaker to a wine seller and sell wine, not make wine. And at the same time, this financial crisis comes, this revolution. So it was quite a shock, and I needed some time to get out of it. And when I was trying to get out of it, we had this pandemic, the coronavirus, and again we had to sit back. And I can say that I kind of managed not I kind of managed in a good way this crisis, especially when we got locked down and contained. I decided to spend all my time at the village next to the winery in nature. I kind of went under the radar for a month and immersed myself in readings and walkings and the wine and away from any interference from outside the context of SEPT and the winery. And took me a month, and after that kind of got back inspired, and I launched this orange wine and kind of recreated the activity on my way, and I tried to attract positivity again through more people wanting to come visit SET, more people wanting to try SET and buy this new product. So yeah, I can say it was quite an interesting experience. Yeah.
When let's put political instability and the pandemic to one side. SET is a long-term project. It's your life's project to honor your father. Looking back now, how do you feel? And if you knew then what you know now, would you have done anything differently?
Someone once asked me if I would do things differently, and because we made a lot of bad choices in our life, and I can say today, before getting back to when I started, I can say today, whatever I've done today, whatever SET is the result of all the bad decisions I made and some of the good decisions. So I don't know if this answers your question, but
give us examples of the bad decisions.
Wow, this is too personal, man.
Go on.
So basically, my story with SET is very personal, but that's why I cannot say bad decision, because at some point I could have I thought it was a bad decision. Maybe my family thought it was a bad decision, or the people around me. But inside, I always believed in every decision I made, whatever the risks were, whatever the consequences around me and for me were, because I was telling you, when I have people at the winery, and maybe that's that's really the main story of SET today. And I think right now, still on day one, is something I always imagined when I was dreaming to becoming a winemaker or owning a winery or making wine. Sharing this passion I had for this, and I still have for this lifestyle and of this project with people, and seeing in the eyes of people an appreciation and reconnaissance. And I always imagined that, and that was my motive. Every time I was down, thinking, how can I recreate a reality of myself coming when I was in France, you know, and wanting to one day become a winemaker. I used to be a consultant, going to my job every day and dreaming of becoming a winemaker. And between those two realities, I have to learn a lot of things that I didn't know yet. All I going on and curious and wanting to do it, and that's my main motive.
Tell me, you said that your father, before he died, can you tell, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about the circumstances surrounding the death of your father?
Yes, so we are a family of three brothers. I'm the the older one, not the younger one, the older one. My father was in secret services. He was a fighter before that when he was young with the Christian militia. Uh, didn't didn't stay long. He thought this was not a good war, and he enrolled in the army and became a secret service serving his country. And in 1990, it was the last battle between the Christians. Beirut, he knew something's gonna break up to hide us. And on the road, the bombarding started and we couldn't go. So he decided to switch to his brother's house and hide us there. Um, and it got complicated. The army went in, they took his brothers who were affiliated to the Lebanese forces. And he had to go get them out from their, momentary jail or wherever from the army. And while going there, his mother insisted she would come with him. And but just like that, a shell just came in front of them, and he has this reflex of a fighter, so he covered his mother and threw her on the, he covered her with his body. So he took everything from his side and saved his mother. And he resisted for a week at the hospital. We went to see him, and that's the story you wrote about. It's funny because when I wrote your text, I remembered that I told you that, because I think we had a very intimate time together. So because it's a story I don't tell every time, but it reminded me of that moment. I was 7 years old, and I went to see my dad, and he was all smiling and everything is okay. He was this kind of people, always taking care of others and don't want others to worry about him. And I remember how he took me, and he just told me in a way that I cannot now maybe say it here, but he kind of told me to stay strong. And I took it on myself, and maybe it wasn't something a 7-year-old boy should take, but I took it on myself to become responsible and to honor his memory all my life. So I spent my life teaching my brother how amazing my father was, our father was, and we should not forget him, etc., etc. And it helped me to be expressive about it. And that's what made me one day, when I was in France, use this weakness I had in my life, which is the loss of my father, and turn it into a strength. Because when I started living alone and being challenged alone, I needed some strength somewhere. And I always found it in the memory of my father. That's the story.
So you decided to honor your father by planting your land, his land, in the village of Nala in Batroun. What did your mother say? What did your mother say when you said, this is what you were going to do?
Okay, that's 10 years later. I was 27 years old. I started having questions about life, purpose of life. Why are we here? What I want to do with my life. And something always came up, and the only thing that made me at least feel satisfied or happy was the idea of being in the village, doing something there where my father was buried, where his legacy is, where he came from. And I traveled around the world. I mean, it's not before traveling, it's after traveling and loving and being in awe in everything in life and in the world. I decided that the only place where I can feel myself and be this person is there, and I need to do something there. So it was a summer vacation in Lebanon, and we were planting a garden next to the house that my father built in 1989, just a year before he died. So we tried all our life to maintain this house and make it better and continue this legacy. And there was a terrace, like an empty desertic terrace around the house. And I told Mom, imagine this planted with vines. It would be amazing. And maybe one day I can make wine. And she looks at me, smiles, and she says, go back to France, continue your job. You're doing a great job. Stop dreaming. And, you know, I know where she comes from. She's right. I mean, at that time, she was right. I need to focus. And I went back to France, and I did exactly the contrary. It took me 3 months. I resigned. I came back to Lebanon. I told my mother I'm gonna plant the vineyard because was really, I felt it. This was my destiny. This is what I want to be.
And what did she say then?
I think it took her a while before agreeing or knowing for sure that I wasn't going crazy. It took her a while.
What does she say now?
Oh, she's so proud. She's very proud. She's very happy.
And does she say to you, God, imagine at one point I was trying to tell you to not do this?
No. She tells me that deep in her, she believed in what I was doing, but she was so afraid because she didn't want me to, lose my path or my career, because it was hard. So today we are 2020. I came back in 2010 to Lebanon, leaving all my career behind me. Spent 2 years in Lebanon preparing the vineyard, and literally the bad decision I was talking about, like I was always waiting for all the money to disappear and then start over. So in 2010, I was broke again. So I started looking for a job. I found a job in Saudi Arabia. I went there. It was a good job, it was well paid. Then after deciding to leave Saudi, I came back to Lebanon and I spent all the money I saved on my master's at the OEV. So I came back from the OEV completely broke again in 2015. And I started again working small job, getting some money, trying to buy some things. And this is how I built SET. So I built SET mainly from 2010 to 2017 with small jobs or some savings. Mainly the savings went to my vineyards and to my learning. And all the investment in the material and stuff, it was small jobs until I was able to apply for a loan, small loan, which helped me continue my project and launch the product.
And tell me, when I've been to your winery, I've sat on your beautiful terrace, I've looked out on your beautiful vines. When you are there alone and you're standing there with a glass of wine looking out across the hills, what do you think? Do you talk to your father? What goes through your mind?
Yeah, well, it's an evolution, because the first time I stood there and I looked at it, it wasn't a vineyard. It was a left land, it was kind of a small forest. And I said, I felt this is where I can build a dream. And then when I planted the vineyard, for example, when I lived in Saudi, anytime I was feeling weak and lonely, I used to go back to this place, standing on the vineyard and feeling proud of what I did and knowing that my father is proud. So mainly I talk a lot with my father there, especially when I walk in that vineyard. Me evolving and growing up, this talking became less, it's like less, it's not really talking, it's more appreciating the moment, being grateful about what we've done here. But what's the most important thing is at every moment at the vineyard, in this place where I work, where I make my wine for 2-3 months, and then I welcome people. There's no second in all this time spent there, I don't feel the energy of my father, and this lightness of being, you know, a real lightness, you know, being lightness of being, and I feel that, and I live from that, and I cannot live without that today.
Do you think? I mean, the thing that strikes me about what you've done is that all of us have dreams, all of us have aspirations. If you're a writer, you got that novel in you that you want to write. If you're stuck in a 9-to-5 job, you've got that company that you want to set up. You want to get out of the rat race, work for yourself. But very few of us actually seize the moment and do it. What would you tell somebody who says in an offhand comment, you know, I really want to do this, I want to do this, but I don't think I'll ever get around to doing it? I mean, listening to you speak, it's almost as if you could go on a lecture tour to tell people to really follow their dream. I mean, what advice, what have you learned, and what advice can you give?
That's a very good question. I don't know the advice. I think, you know, I think this is any person with a dream either has the means to do it or does not. If he has the means to do it, then it's easy, right? If he doesn't have the means to do it, meaning his situation doesn't allow, he needs to change of life, etc. I think this would involve a personal, you know, a work on yourself, you know, a work on your inner self, you know. So for me, this is the advice I'm giving. If your dream is something that that you need to become a better person, or an improved person in your own health. And at this stage, when the important thing is yourself, I'm not talking about forgetting about family. No, I'm talking about a personal growth. Then there's no boundaries anymore, because I believe that we all should, every person should always should grow personally, and there's no compromise on this. So if your dream is a real dream, a true dream, the advice will come from the person himself. He should throw himself to it and believe in what he wants to be or what his calling is. I don't think a dream should be a caprice. I think a dream should be something that will make you grow. My advice.
No, that's great. I want to talk about your wines, because as I said in the introduction, it's not just your story that I found extraordinary and compelling, but at the business end of all this, is the wines. And you have the land, you can set up the winery, you've got your grapes, but everyone knows at the end of the day, wine is a difficult business. And Lebanon makes 10 million bottles in a global industry of 36 billion. So we are having to muscle our way in there to get seen and get noticed. And what I noticed about you is that you tore up the rule book of what Lebanese wines should be. You didn't say, I'm going to make my Bordeaux Rhone blends heavily extracted, dressed in the most expensive oak money can buy. I'm going to make squeaky clean wines. No, no, no. You went and you said, I'm going to make wines a little bit off-piste, a little bit dirty, a little bit daring, a little bit, a little bit daring, I think, a little bit different, because we need to set ourselves apart. What made you reach this conclusion? Because not everyone who sets up a winery has the philosophy to do wines in the way you're doing them. And I think it comes from the personality of the person. So I'm asking Maher Harb, are you a bit off-piste? Are you a bit dangerous and dirty? I mean, not dirty.
Well, first of all, I like it dirty. I like it dangerous. So it says it all. Now, listen, it's. I think it's a process too. When I first started my project, my adventure in wine, and I always say this to everyone. I literally knew little of anything about wine. All I knew is there's a €5 bottle at Carrefour, a Côte d'Iron that would be always very good. And I love Syrah, and from the Bordeaux wine, I love the Grave, and it's not too expensive. That's all I knew about wine. This is when I decided to become a winemaker. Then when I digged in, I started learning about wine through books. One of the first books I read was your book, for example. That's where I started. I was very, very far from what I am today. And I think starting from scratch, it kind of built my sensitivity or sensibility about the curiosity of discovering the wine, knowing what I like, evolving, growing my palate. And my 1.5 year tour with the OIV in 25 countries, we've met a lot of winemakers, so a lot of passionate people with their own stories, a lot of unique wines with their own characters. And I saw myself growing my style, my how do you say, the wine I like was growing with me at every step of new discovery. Every time I discovered a new region, a new wine, I was like, oh, I like this more than what I used to like, etc., etc. And then with the knowledge coming in, and with the idea of starting a winery in Lebanon and producing and becoming a producer, and as you can see in the brand and the story I have, it was very natural based on my personality to work on something that is not dirty or dangerous or broad. I didn't know it's gonna be like that, seen like that. All I knew is I wanted to do something honest to myself, honest to the terroir I'm working with, and honest to the consumer. At the beginning, I didn't think I'm gonna do natural wine. I didn't think I can do natural. I didn't think I can do wine at all. I wanted to try, right? So I remember first year I was experimenting with the wine. I went and bought a bag of yeast, from a French laboratory. I took the bag and I know how to use it, right? I read it in the book. And I went to the winery, to the garage. It was the garage, and I wanted to use it. I couldn't go through the door. I threw it. I couldn't imagine myself putting something in a grape juice that was smelling and tasting that good. I said, this is not possible. I know it can ferment alone. I mean, they were doing it back then, right? Let's see what it gives. And this is how it started. And basically, when I started making wine, a lot of my work was based on intuition. I used to sit with my wife, with my mother, with my brother, with my friend, and said, man, I don't know how am I doing the wine. It's like crazy. When I go in, it's like I'm going in a trippy place. I just do stuff. And then I taste and ask him, is it good or it's only me? And this is how it happened. So a lot of intuition was involved and still is involved. What I discovered between 2016, my first vintage, and 2019, so 3 vintages. It's only been 3 vintages. And a lot of things I learned from that. But I learned that intuition is always coupled with experience when you start doing things, and intuition become even more interesting because you know how to direct it and guide it, etc. So I think this is what made those wines, as you said, unique.
That's really fascinating. I've got a lot more questions, but I want to throw it out to the floor. I know you've got a lot of fans out there who might want to ask you some questions.
Oh,
so
I have fans. Yeah,
I hope so. Anyone?
Yeah. Hi, Maher. This is Jamal Reyes. We've communicated a bit courtesy of
Hi, Jamal.
Philippe
Yes,
Assaf. How are you? Yeah.
We kind of missed each other in New York.
Yeah,
right?
we kept missing each other. Yeah. Anyway, here we are. So a couple of questions. One, when you were doing your tours with the OIV, I suppose if you took that tour 10 or 15 years ago, your perspective would have been very, very different right now. Was there? Because, of course, the OIV was a much more conservative organization. It still fairly is, but it was just much more within the certain strictures of winemaking and concepts of wine. Did you, when they were taking you on tours, were they directing you to any particular type of winemaker, or was it just everything, or was it something you happened to come along across your way? I mean, you happen to be in France at a time when, so because vin naturel was becoming sort of à la mode, I guess, and so it became all the cool kid wine drinkers were starting to drink this stuff. So I'm just wondering how your formal introduction to wine met your experience in terms of pleasure, your social and other experiences, and then just sort of curiosity.
Good to see you, Jamal.
Yeah, stood up.
Listen, there's, I mean, you have a point in this. To come back to the OIV, I think the masters of the OIV in its concept is, I mean, is not dependent from a period. Of course, there will be influences, but basically, it's a group of people who don't know each other who meet in Paris and start a world tour, right? So the factors are very complex. You know, it's not only. Of course, we will be influenced by maybe a trend. I don't say no, but I think it's more interesting than that, because imagine living with 15 to 20 people that you don't know for a year and a half, and everyone has his opinion and taste, etc. And you're meeting a lot of different winemakers. So basically, yes, the program is preset every year for visits and who we visit and who we see and who we discover, but it's always covering all the aspects. For example, talking about natural wine. So the natural wine trend, I didn't, when I was touring, I didn't really click to it. And in France, we only had few visits to natural wineries, and they were deceiving. So this is not what brought me to natural wine. And that said, the natural wine I'm trying to make, and I want to be specific about this, and I hope Michael, who tasted my wine, can confirm it. I'm not trying to make funky wines. That's not my purpose. It's very important for me that the wine keeps its elegant and amazing aromas and flavors. What I'm trying to do is to express at the maximum the expression of the grapes and the terroir. For me, this is where the difference is for me. Maybe it's a thin difference between natural wine but this is not the wine that wants to be trendy. That's not what I'm doing. And it was very important because it's easy to go in the other direction, you know, a small, tiny detail, if you're not precautious in what you're doing, can take you to a very funny wine. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
Well, I mean, I've only had one experience with your wine, as I think I told you, was with Pierre Assef in Miami, and the wine had this vivacity. It was a Viognier, I believe. There was nothing funky about it. You know, it had this certain life and an energy to it, but it wasn't. I mean, I could tell how it was made, but it wasn't anything that struck me like, well, I have to forgive a flaw because of the way it's made. No, there was nothing to forgive. So, and I didn't. By the way, I never heard. Did you find it representative in the U.S.? I heard something about it, but I didn't hear what.
Yes,
happened.
My ones are already there, so you can enjoy them anytime.
Where are they?
Now, in New York and Miami now.
Who's your distributor in New York?
Kawas Piliadis.
Okay.
You can.
Okay.
I'll hook you to them if needed.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Jamal.
Thanks, Jamal. Anyone else?
Andreas is on the call.
Okay. Hi, Andreas. Hi.
Yeah,
Hi,
Maher.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you? Yes, I was on mute. Yeah, we import the wines into the US as well as into the UK. And you can definitely find them in Florida, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and the States are going to be increasing, hopefully, after we get past this as well.
Alaka, I miss you.
Hey, Mike, how are you, man?
Norbert, I think I had a question.
Yeah, what makes your wines kind of so unique is also the terroir you're at. The first thing I noticed when I went to your place was I could barely walk through it because it was like
That's because you're getting old, Norbert. Stop putting
it wasn't.
excuses.
Well, we had a couple glasses of wine, but it's like a living jungle.
Yes,
and I think
exactly.
It's very special because when I go to every other winery, it's this manicured, perfectly groomed vineyard. When you go to your winery, you have to watch out.
Thank you for bringing this up. I didn't have the chance to talk about it, but one of the main things I'm trying to do at my own vineyard, from which I produce the Syrah and the Cabernet Sauvignon, is to work biodynamic, following the biodynamic approach of agriculture. And this is something I wanted from the start. I mean, I'm today not very knowledgeable to the complete extent of the biodynamic approach and all Rudolf Steiner teachings, but it kind of came as a natural thing to do because when I started planting this vineyard, I couldn't imagine myself bringing pesticides or using anything that could deteriorate the balance that we can have in this vineyard. And when I first, killed it somehow to make the terracing and plant the vineyard, it kind of broke my heart because I knew I killed some kind of balance, and I started putting everything I can in order to bring back an equilibrium, a natural balance. And the biodynamic approach helped me a lot in observing, in learning, in understanding the influences, the connection between planets and the energies, which I believe so much in, which kind of pushed me also to work my winemaking following the moon calendar, the lunar calendar, and this energetical approach, not only at the vineyard. So yeah, that's why you cannot walk straight. The energy is too strong for you, Mr. Norbert.
Maher, I have a question from Philippa Mishlawi, who's been a loyal attendee on these events. She wants to know, and it's something that maybe I should have asked before, where does the name SEPT come from?
Yes, SEPT is 7 in French. So we all agree on that. Basically, I grew up loving number 7. So I studied mathematics and econometrics when I was at university in France. So I'm a mathematician, basically. I'm not a winemaker. And numbers were always something I was passionate about, but I wasn't really passionate about corporate life. So 7 was one of those numbers that spiritually and energetically, and with this connection I always had with the memory of my father, 7 was always connected to that in a way or another, something very personal I used to see or hear or create maybe in my mind, but it was very important for me. And when I was working on my branding, of course, I wanted to have a unique brand, a different brand, a brand that is simple, modern, that is attractive at the same time, has a meaning. And I wanted also I wanted the name to have, to symbolize this relationship with my father. So it was very hard to find something like that unless labeling the bottle with the name of my father, which was absolutely not a choice, And one day I was, actually the true story is that my brother, Mazen, the second brother, he lives in Berlin. He's now a sound healer. So he used to be a neuroscientist. and became a meditational sound healer in Berlin. And he was interested about numerology. He knew that I loved number 7 and it was something important to me. One day he calls me and says, "Listen, Maher, I have a very good surprise for you. I actually know why do you love number 7, and I know why you are so connected to Dad's memory." And like I was like, "Wow, how do you know all of this, right?" And I can spend a lifetime not discovering this. And he talked about numerology, and I said, I did the numerology test on you and my father. It's based on the date of birth, right? And he finds out that me and my father in numerology are number 7. It was very funny because in the story that Michael wrote about me going to Spain on my bicycle before deciding to come back, actually I went and I did Camino de Santiago for 11 days on my bicycle alone, where it helped me really to decide on me getting back to Lebanon and really dedicating my life to winemaking. And at the end, I went to a tattooer and I asked him to tattoo this tattoo on my hand, which is a 7 in Roman. That was 5 years before naming the wine set or 7. And when he told me about the story about numerology, it kind of all, like for me, it kind of all made sense. And 2 days later, we were brainstorming about the naming with my designer. And I told her, listen, it came up to my mind again. We're going to call it Set because this is the story. And I think that's exactly what I was looking for.
Maher, not amazingly, sadly, we've run out of time. Unless there's one last question that we can take from the audience.
I had a question that I would like to ask potentially about the skin contact Obeide.
Yes.
Excellent, go ahead.
Hello, Maher.
Hi, Jordan.
In short, yeah, the skin contact Obeide, I wanted just to hear how you thought that went, whether you're wanting to launch that or to continue making that as vintages go on, and tell me a little bit more about it, because we can't get it in the United Kingdom. So
your man is Andreas, so today he's hearing
indeed.
all your wishes. I think he's noting them, so no problem. Okay, great. It's an amazing question because Skin Contact is a new product, and basically it's the first of a kind in Lebanon. Of course, it goes well in the trend of natural wines, biodynamic wines, etc. At the beginning, I mean, I wasn't really fanatic about it because the first time I tasted the vin orange wine, and I didn't like the name because I don't think, basically I don't like the orange color, maybe that's why. And I think it's more amber than orange. So I wasn't really interested in doing that. But the Abeide, I'm going to tell you something about the Abeide cepage. So the Abeide cepage, of course, everything new, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, you start understanding more about how to ferment it. And the Abeide is very oily. The skin is very oily. What's on the skin from inside is very oily. And at the winery, I only use wooden press, a very small wooden press of 500 kilos. And I noticed while always pressing the Abeide that I am having a hard time. I mean, I was okay pressing 50% of the juice from Abeide, but I wasn't okay pressing 20%. And I still always press only 50%. So I had to find a solution for that. And the solution was to destem the Abeide and wait for it and put it in a tank before pressing for at least 12 hours. I did that once because of lack of place capacity, right? I did it and I pressed it and it turned out to be beautiful. 12 hours of maceration that I didn't think about, but I had to do it because of space. And I also realized that I can press them more efficiently. So this is how I started making my Abeide with skin contact, at least 12 hours. And the other part of the Abeide, the 50%, I used to put in small barrels for arak making, right? So the first time it was vinegar because I couldn't control it. It was outside. The second year it was controlled, and I tasted this Arak wine, which was the first orange wine I did, and no one knew about it, and it was amazing. The scents, the aromas, the flora, I was like, whoa, this is an amazing wine. It's very unique, it's very different. And this is where I got into the idea of making an orange Ubaidi, a skin contact Ubaidi. And this year I put it in 2019. I made it on purpose to produce 200 bottles as an experiment and see what it gives. And I stopped the skin contact at the 5th month, and it's looking amazing. So from now on, there will always be a skin contact Ubaidi, and hopefully in the future, a skin contact Mirweh. And I think I'll do that with the indigenous grapes because there's some kind of like, it makes sense, right?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Okay.
I think so, and I think it's a wonderful tribute to especially the Mirweh and the Ubaidi, which are both ancient grapes, and they give a deeply profound expression to our wonderful terroir. And Maher, I just want to thank you very much. This has been the longest session that we've had. I think it's a testament to your passion.
Thank you very much.
Testament to your story, and a testament to what you're trying to do with your wines. Now, as I said earlier, I think we're a very small country. We're 10 million bottles a year. We're not even plankton. We're a microorganism in the sea of wine, and we need to be different to stand out. And at the same time, we need to reflect our heritage. And I think you're doing a great job, and I can't wait to come up to North Lebanon again and to see you and to taste your wines with you when all this is all over. So thank you. I want to thank everyone else who's turned up today, especially our regulars, Philippa, Jamal, May, Beth, and anyone else. And thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And you are all welcome at SET whenever you can take a plane and come visit us.